The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council floated in orbit above a gray world called Varanthos Prime. It was a massive station, built 40,000 years ago by species who considered themselves the masters of the universe. 12 great races sat in tall chairs arranged in a circle, their representatives looking down at anyone who dared to speak before them. Today that person was Ambassador Elena Vasquez of Earth. She stood alone in the center of the chamber, a single human woman facing the collected power of a galaxy. Her black diplomatic uniform was simple compared to the flowing robes and glittering armor worn by the council members. She looked small, she looked weak, and every alien in that room knew it. High Arbiter Ketha Varan of the Silithid Dominion clicked his mandibles together in what passed for a smile among his insectoid people. He was ancient, even by the standards of his long-lived species. His compound eyes reflected Elena's image 1,000 times over as he studied her with obvious contempt. "You may speak, human," he said. His voice buzzed and clicked, translated into standard by the chamber's systems. Elena took a breath. "Honored members of the Galactic Council, I come before you today to present humanity's formal request for recognition as a minor sovereign species." A ripple of amusement passed through the chamber. Several representatives did not bother to hide their laughter. Elena continued as if she had not noticed. "Humanity has maintained peaceful relations with all council species for 300 years. We have contributed to galactic trade. We have followed every law and regulation placed upon us. We have asked for nothing except the opportunity to prove ourselves worthy of a place among you." She paused and looked around the room. "Today we ask only for what every other species has been granted: basic rights, protection under galactic law, recognition that we are more than just animals to be managed." The Rathani representative, a tall being covered in silver scales, leaned forward. "Ambassador Vasquez, your species achieved faster-than-light travel only 3 centuries ago. The youngest species on this council took 5,000 years to earn their seat. What makes humanity believe it deserves such recognition so quickly?" "Because we have done everything asked of us," Elena replied. "And because continuing to deny us basic rights serves no purpose except cruelty." Silence fell over the chamber. That word hung in the air. Cruelty. No one had ever accused the council of cruelty to their faces. High Arbiter Kethavoran rose from his seat. His body was massive, covered in a hard shell that gleamed like polished metal. When he spoke, his voice filled the entire chamber. "Little human, you misunderstand your position. You are here because we allow it. Your colonies exist because we permit them. Your ships travel through our space because we have not chosen to stop them." He stepped closer to her, towering over her small frame. "You are not our equals. You are not even close to our equals. You are a convenience, a buffer between civilized space and the lawless regions beyond." Elena did not step back. She met his compound eyes without fear. "And if we no longer wish to be a convenience?" The High Arbiter made a sound that might have been laughter. "Then you will be nothing at all." He returned to his seat and gestured to the other council members. "We shall vote on the human petition. All those in favor of granting humanity minor sovereign status?" Silence. Not a single hand or claw or tentacle was raised. "All those opposed?" 12 appendages rose in perfect unison. "The petition is denied," Kethvorn announced. He seemed to take pleasure in the words. But he was not finished. "Furthermore, the Council has reviewed the current distribution of resources in the Kepler sector. We have determined that humanity's 3 colony worlds in that region are being used inefficiently." His mandibles clicked rapidly. "Therefore, under Article 12 of the Colonial Management Act, we are invoking the Terran Redistribution Accord. These worlds will be annexed and redistributed among Council species for more productive use." Elena felt her heart stop. 3 colonies, 40 million people, taken away with a wave of his claw. "You cannot do this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We already have," the Rathani representative replied. "The vote was held this morning before your arrival. It was unanimous." Elena looked around the chamber. Every face showed the same expression: satisfaction, amusement, the pleasure of powerful beings putting a lesser creature in its place. She had come here hoping for fairness. She had believed that if humanity just followed the rules, just proved themselves worthy, they would eventually be accepted. She understood now how foolish that hope had been. The Council did not want humanity to succeed. They never had. Every law, every restriction, every denied petition had been designed to keep humans exactly where they were. Weak, dependent, controllable. Elena straightened her spine. When she spoke again, her voice was clear and steady. I understand. The Council has made its decision. Humanity will remember this day. She paused and looked directly at the High Arbiter. You will come to regret this decision, not because of what we will do to you, but because of what you have just done to yourselves. Laughter erupted throughout the chamber. Real laughter this time, not the polite sounds of diplomatic amusement. The idea that humanity could threaten them in any way was simply too ridiculous. Go home, little human, Kethvarin said, still laughing. Go home and tell your people to prepare for the transition. We will be sending ships to Kepler within the month. Elena turned and walked out of the chamber. She did not look back. The council members continued laughing long after she had gone. They joked about human arrogance. They mocked her final words. They congratulated themselves on handling the situation so well. None of them noticed the slight smile on Elena's face as she left. None of them wondered why she had not seemed more afraid. And none of them had any idea what was about to happen. Far away in a region of space that appeared on no star chart, something stirred. It was old, older than the Council, older than their precious 40,000 years of civilization. It had been sleeping for a very long time, waiting, watching, hoping it would never be needed. A single red light blinked to life on a console that had been dark for 2 centuries. Systems began powering up one by one. Automated processes that had run in silence for generations suddenly had purpose again. Deep in the heart of the ancient vessel, a message appeared on a screen. Sanctuary protocol initiated. Awakening crew. Destination: Kepler sector. The ship began to move. The fleet arrived at Kepler 442b exactly 3 weeks after the council vote. 340 warships from 6 different species, arranged in perfect formation above the blue-green world that humans called New Eden. Admiral Torvax of the Rathani hegemony stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crushing Tide. He watched the planet rotate slowly below him and felt nothing but boredom. This was not a battle. This was pest control. Admiral, his sensor officer reported, we are detecting 23 human vessels in orbit, all Class 7 patrol ships, no weapons capable of penetrating our shields. Torvax nodded. He had expected as much. According to every intelligence report, humanity possessed only 28 ships in total. They had sent almost their entire fleet to defend this world, and it would make no difference at all. Open a channel to the colony, he ordered. The main screen flickered, and a human woman appeared. She was older, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that showed no fear. She wore the simple uniform of a colonial administrator. I am Admiral Torvax of the Rathani hegemony, he announced. I am here to oversee the transition of this world to council authority. You have 6 hours to begin evacuation procedures. The woman stared at him for a long moment. I am Governor Margaret Chen of New Eden, and I have a different proposal. Torvax made a sound of annoyance. There is nothing to propose. The council has voted. This world belongs to us now. No, Governor Chen said simply. It does not. The Admiral's scales flushed dark with anger. He was not accustomed to being contradicted by lesser species. You have no choice in this matter, human. Your ships cannot stop us. Your weapons cannot hurt us. You have nothing. Governor Chen smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Admiral Torvax, on behalf of the human colonies of the Kepler sector, I formally invoke the right of sanctuary under Article 7 of the Founding Compact. Silence fell across the bridge. Torvax stared at the screen, his mind racing to understand what he had just heard. Article 7. He knew that law. Every officer in the council fleets knew it, though none had ever seen it used. The right of sanctuary was an ancient provision, written into the very first laws of the Galactic Council. It allowed any species facing extinction to call upon a patron power for protection. If a patron answered the call, The attacking fleet was required to withdraw or face the patron in combat. But there was a problem with the governor's invocation, a very simple problem. Humanity has no patron power, Torvax said. You have no allies. No one will answer your call. This is a meaningless gesture. Is it? Governor Chen asked. She reached for something off-screen. Her fingers moved across a console. I am now transmitting a formal request for sanctuary. The message contains coordinates and an authentication code. If you are correct, Admiral, nothing will happen. If you are wrong, she let the sentence hang in the air. Torvax laughed. If I am wrong, then some imaginary human ally will appear from nowhere to save you. Foolish woman, you are wasting your final hours with these games. The transmission ended. Governor Chen's face disappeared from the screen. Torvax turned to his officers. Continue preparations for landing. The humans wish to play, pretend until the last moment. We will not indulge them further. The minutes passed slowly. The fleet continued its approach. Human patrol ships scattered before them like small fish fleeing a predator. Everything was proceeding exactly as expected, and then everything changed. Admiral! The sensor officer's voice cracked with sudden fear. We are detecting. I do not know what we are detecting. Explain, Torvax demanded. There is something at the edge of the system, something very large. Our sensors cannot determine its exact size because... The officer paused, checking his readings again. Because it is still emerging. Torvax felt the first hint of unease. Show me. The main screen switched to a view of empty space. For a moment, there was nothing, just stars. Then the stars began to disappear. Something was blocking them, something vast. And as Torvax watched, that something continued to grow larger and larger, pushing aside the fabric of space itself. What is that? Someone whispered. The answer came a moment later, as the thing finished emerging and became fully visible. It was a ship. A ship larger than anything Torvax had ever seen. Larger than anything in Council records. Larger than some space stations. Its hull was dark gray, marked with symbols in a language that the translation systems could not immediately recognize. But the ship's design was unmistakable. The angular lines, the distinctive engine configuration, the familiar proportions scaled up to impossible size. It was human. Get me identification, Torvax ordered. His voice was steady, but his hearts were pounding. Admiral, hull analysis indicates the vessel is... The data must be wrong. The computer says this ship is over 12,000 years old. That is impossible. Humans did not have space travel 12,000 years ago. The analysis is confirmed, Admiral. 12,000 years. And there is more. The sensor officer turned to face him with wide, frightened eyes. The ship's registry is coming through now. It calls itself UES Prometheus. The Prometheus. Torvax searched his memory. The name meant nothing to him, but from the expressions on his officers' faces, it meant something to them. Admiral, his first officer said slowly, my grandmother told me stories when I was young. Old stories, from before the hegemony joined the council. She spoke of ships that protected humanity from the shadows. Ships that no one could defeat. She called them the Silent Wardens. Children's tales, Torvax snapped. Nothing more. But even as he spoke, the Prometheus was moving. It crossed the distance between the system's edge and the planet in seconds, coming to rest between the Council fleet and New Eden. At this range, its true size became apparent. It was nearly 300 kilometers long. The crushing tide was less than 2 kilometers. The entire Council fleet could have fit inside the human vessel with room to spare. A signal came through. Every screen on every ship in the fleet flickered, and a human woman appeared. She wore a uniform that looked ancient, marked with symbols that matched those on the Prometheus's hull. Her face was young, but her eyes held a weight that suggested she had seen things beyond imagining. I am Commander Yuki Tanaka of the UES Prometheus, she said. Humanity's call for sanctuary has been received and answered. You are ordered to withdraw from this system immediately. Admiral Torvax stared at the image. His mind told him to be afraid. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but his pride was stronger than his fear. I do not take orders from humans, he said. Your ship is impressive, but you are still only one vessel. We are 340. Remove yourself from our path, or we will remove you. Commander Tanaka's expression did not change. Admiral, I am giving you this chance because we prefer not to cause unnecessary harm. But make no mistake, if you attack, you will lose. All of you, in seconds. Torvax bared his teeth. All ships, open fire. 340 warships unleashed their weapons at once. Beams of energy, missiles, plasma torpedoes, everything they had, concentrated on a single target. The Prometheus did not even try to dodge. The attack struck its hull and simply stopped, absorbed, nullified. Not a single shot left so much as a scratch. Then the Prometheus moved. What happened next lasted exactly 9 seconds. The ship flowed through the Council fleet like water through stones. It did not fire weapons. It simply touched each vessel as it passed, and each vessel went dark. Engines failed. Weapons shut down. Shields collapsed. When it was over, 340 ships drifted helplessly in space. Not one had been destroyed. Not one crew member had been killed. But they were completely powerless. Commander Tanaka appeared on the screens once more. We could have killed you all, she said. Remember that we chose not to. Return to your council. Tell them what you witnessed here today. Tell them that the silent wardens remember, even if they have forgotten. And tell them this: humanity is no longer alone. The transmission ended. Admiral Torvax stood on his darkened bridge, surrounded by the soft sounds of failing systems, and understood that the galaxy had just changed forever. Admiral Torvax sat in his command chair aboard the crippled crushing tide. Emergency lighting cast red shadows across his scales. Around him, his crew worked desperately to restore basic systems. They had managed to get life support running again, but little else. The Prometheus hung in space 1,000 kilometers away. It had not moved since disabling the fleet. It simply waited, like a predator that had already won and saw no need to prove it further. A signal came through on the emergency channel. Commander Tanaka's face appeared on the one screen that still functioned. Admiral Torvax, she said, I would like to explain some things to you. I believe understanding will serve both our peoples better than continued conflict. Torvax wanted to snarl at her. He wanted to tell her exactly what he thought of humans and their hidden weapons, but he was not a fool. His fleet was helpless. His only option was to listen. Speak, he said. What I'm about to tell you is not widely known among humanity. Only our highest leaders have access to this history. But I think it is time for the truth to spread further. Tanaka paused, gathering her thoughts. 12,000 years ago, humanity almost destroyed itself. Despite his anger, Torvax found himself leaning forward. We fought a war, Tanaka continued, a terrible war that lasted for generations. We burned our own world. We poisoned our oceans. We killed billions of our own people. By the end, Earth was barely habitable. The survivors had only one choice: leave or die. Generation ships, Torvax said. He knew this part of human history. Everyone did. It was why the Council considered humans to be primitive savages. Yes, hundreds of ships, launched in every direction, hoping to find new worlds. Most failed. Many were lost forever. Tanaka's expression grew distant. But there was one group that refused to accept that future. They called themselves the Prometheus Initiative. Your ship's name. Yes, they believed that humanity was doomed to repeat its mistakes unless something fundamental changed. They had seen what happened when humans fought each other. They knew that eventually, when humanity spread across the stars, they would encounter other species. And they feared what might happen then. Torvax made a sound of contempt. So they built a weapon to destroy anyone who threatened them. No, Admiral. They built guardians, protectors. The Prometheus and her 4 sister ships were never designed for conquest. They were designed to ensure that humanity would never face extinction again. Not from internal war, not from external threat, not from anything. Sister ships? Torvax felt cold. There are more? The Athena, the Hephaestus, the Ares, the Hermes. 5 ships in total, hidden across the galaxy, watching over human expansion from the shadows. We call ourselves the Silent Wardens. Torvax's mind raced. 5 ships, each presumably as powerful as the Prometheus. 5 ships that had remained hidden for 12,000 years. How was that possible? How have you survived so long, he asked. No crew could live for 12 millennia. We take turns, Tanaka explained, rotating shifts of cryogenic sleep. I was awakened 150 years ago. Before that, I slept for 3,000 years. Others have slept for longer. She smiled slightly. The original crew is long dead, of course, but their descendants carry on the mission. We are born, we serve, and eventually we sleep. It is a strange life, but it is the life we chose. And you have never interfered? In all that time? We have interfered twice, both times against threats that humanity never knew existed. Dangers from outside the galaxy, from the spaces between stars. Things that would have destroyed your council as easily as they would have destroyed us. Tanaka's eyes grew hard. We did not do it for you. We did it because those threats endangered everyone. But the fact remains, your civilization has survived partly because of us. Torvax wanted to deny it. He wanted to call her a liar. But something in her voice stopped him. She spoke like someone telling an old truth, not someone inventing a new lie. Your council's founders knew about us, Tanaka continued. 40,000 years ago, we ended the Third Galactic War. Not by fighting, by making it impossible for either side to continue. We disabled every fleet just as we disabled yours. We forced them to negotiate, and afterward they created the Founding Compact, which included Article 7, the right of sanctuary. They wrote that law specifically because of us, a way for the weak to call upon the strong for protection. But the records were deliberately destroyed, or lost, or simply forgotten. 40,000 years is a long time. Admiral, empires rise and fall. Species evolve and die. The council of today is not the council that wrote those laws. You inherited their civilization without inheriting their memories. You forgot us. And because you forgot, you thought you could do whatever you wanted to species you considered beneath you. Torvax said nothing. He could not deny the truth of her words. We watched humanity join the galactic community, Tanaka said. We hoped it would be different this time. We hoped that perhaps, after 40,000 years, the galaxy had learned to treat newcomers with respect. But we were disappointed. Again and again, we saw humanity pushed down, denied rights, treated as lesser beings. And still, we did not act. We told ourselves that humanity had to earn their place, that they could not rely on us forever. But today the Council crossed a line, taking 3 worlds from a species that has done nothing wrong, simply because you have the power to do so. That is not governance, that is theft, that is cruelty, and we could not allow it. Torvax looked at the frozen ships of his fleet. 40 million credits worth of warships, the pride of 6 species, reduced to floating debris in 9 seconds. And the Prometheus had not even used its main weapons. What happens now, he asked. Now you return to the Council. You tell them exactly what happened here. You tell them that humanity has a patron power. You tell them that the Silent Wardens have awakened. And we will not sleep again until this matter is resolved. And if the Council refuses to listen, Commander Tanaka's expression was calm but firm, then we will come to them, not to destroy, never to destroy unless there is no other choice, but to demonstrate, as we demonstrated to you, that the time for treating humanity as a lesser species is over. One way or another, Admiral, the galaxy is going to change. The only question is whether that change happens peacefully or not. She paused and leaned closer to the screen. We have protected humanity for 12,000 years. We have fought battles that no history book records. We have made sacrifices that no one will ever thank us for. And we have done it all in silence, asking for nothing in return. But now we are asking for something very simple. Treat our people with respect. That is all. Just respect. Is that really so difficult? Torvax thought about his own species' history. The Rathani had once been a conquered people, enslaved by a now extinct empire. They had fought for generations to earn their freedom, and then fought for generations more to earn their seat on the Council. And yet, faced with a younger species trying to do the same thing, they had responded with contempt and theft. Perhaps, he thought, they had forgotten what it felt like to be the weak ones. "I will deliver your message," he said finally. "I cannot promise how the council will respond." "That is all we ask," Tanaka replied. "Safe travels, Admiral. I hope we do not meet again under these circumstances." The screen went dark. Torvax sat alone on his ruined bridge and thought about everything he had learned. Then he began composing his report to the council. It would be the most difficult thing he had ever written, but perhaps, in its own way, it would also be the most important. The Grand Chamber had never been so loud. Representatives screamed at each other across the circular room. Aides rushed back and forth, carrying messages and reports. Security officers lined the walls, their weapons ready, though no one was quite sure who the enemy was supposed to be. High Arbiter Kethvorin sat in his tall chair and watched the chaos unfold. He had not moved for over an hour. His compound eyes reflected the pandemonium around him, but his mind was elsewhere, processing the impossible information that Admiral Torvax's report contained. The footage was real. 17 independent experts had verified it. The Prometheus existed. The Silent Wardens existed. And everything the Council believed about humanity was wrong. "We must mobilize immediately." The Silithid military commander slammed his claw against the table. "Every fleet, every weapon. We cannot allow these humans to threaten us." "Mobilize with what?" The Rathani trade minister's voice was sharp with fear. "Did you not see the footage? 340 ships disabled in 9 seconds. Our combined fleets number perhaps 2,000 vessels. At that rate, they could destroy us all before lunch." They did not destroy the fleet. They showed mercy. Mercy? The Silithid commander made a sound of disgust. That was not mercy. That was a message. They wanted us to know how weak we are. Across the room, the representatives of smaller species huddled together, whispering urgently. Many of them had treated humanity with the same contempt the council showed. Now they wondered if they would be next. The doors of the chamber opened, and silence fell. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked into the room. She looked exactly as she had 3 weeks ago. The same simple black uniform, the same calm expression. But something had changed in the way the council looked at her. Where before they had seen an insignificant creature begging for scraps, now they saw the representative of a species that could destroy them all. "Ambassador Vasquez," High Arbiter Kethvorin said. His voice was carefully neutral. "We did not expect you to return." Elena smiled. "I told you that you would regret your decision, High Arbiter. I am here to discuss how we move forward." "Move forward?" The Silithid commander rose from his seat. "Your kind has threatened the entire galaxy. You have hidden weapons of mass destruction for thousands of years. You have deceived us all. There can be no moving forward from this." "We hid nothing," Elena replied calmly. "The Wardens were never secret. Your own archives contain records of them. The Valanthi Communion certainly knows the truth. Perhaps you should ask them what they remember." Every eye in the room turned to the Valanthi section. The Valanthi were the oldest species on the council, their civilization stretching back nearly 100,000 years. Their representative, an ancient being named Shalmora, had remained silent throughout the chaos. Now she rose slowly. Her body was frail with age, but her voice was strong. "The human speaks the truth," Shalmora said. "Our archives contain extensive records of the Silent Wardens. We knew of their existence. We chose not to share this knowledge." The chamber erupted again. Accusations flew. The Silithid commander demanded to know why the Valanthi had kept such important information hidden. Shalmora waited for the noise to die down before continuing. "We kept silent because the Wardens asked us to. 40,000 years ago, they ended a war that would have destroyed half the galaxy. They asked for nothing in return except our silence. They wanted humanity to develop naturally, without the burden of their legacy. We agreed." "And you never thought to tell us?" Kethvorin demanded. "Would you have listened?" Shalmora's ancient eyes fixed on him. "Would any of you have listened? You have spent 3 centuries treating humans like animals. You denied them basic rights. You stole their worlds. You laughed when their ambassador warned you." She shook her head slowly. "The Valanthi remember a time when we were young and weak. We remember what it felt like to be dismissed by older species. We hoped the council had grown beyond such behavior. We were wrong. The silence that followed was heavy with shame. Elena stepped forward. I did not come here to assign blame. What is done is done. I came here to offer humanity's terms for peace. She produced a small device and projected a document into the air above the chamber floor. The text was written in the standard, readable by all. Our terms are simple, Elena said. First, the Terran redistribution accord is canceled immediately. Our 3 colony worlds remain ours. Second, humanity is recognized as a full member of the Galactic Council, with all rights and responsibilities that entails. Third, all discriminatory laws targeting humans are repealed. The representatives studied the document. Some were clearly surprised. That is all? Kethabaran asked. No reparations? No punishment for what we have done? No. Why not? You have the power to demand whatever you want. Why show mercy to those who showed you none? Elena was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft but carried to every corner of the room. Because we have learned what demanding more leads to, she said. 12,000 years ago, humans burned their own world because they could not stop fighting. They killed billions of their own people because victory mattered more than survival. The Silent Wardens were created because of that tragedy. They exist to remind us that power without wisdom is just destruction waiting to happen. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each representative in turn. You have treated us badly. That is true, but you are not our enemies. You are simply afraid. Afraid of what you do not understand. Afraid of losing control. Afraid of a galaxy that is changing faster than you can adapt. She smiled slightly. We understand fear. We have lived with it for a very long time. But we have also learned that fear is a poor reason to harm others. And if we refuse your terms, the Silithid commander asked, if we decide to fight, then the Wardens will defend us, Elena said simply, not by destroying you, but by making war impossible, just as they did at Kepler, just as they did 40,000 years ago. You cannot defeat them. That is not a boast. It is simply a fact. So the question is not whether humanity will survive. The question is whether you want to spend the next 1,000 years as enemies of a species that only ever wanted to be your friends. The vote was called an hour later. One by one, the representatives made their choice. The Raythani voted first, accepting the terms. Then the smaller species eager to be on the right side of history. Even the Silithid, in the end, could not deny the reality of their situation. High Arbiter Kethavoran cast the final vote. His compound eyes studied Elena for a long moment before he spoke. The Silithid Dominion accepts humanity's terms, he said. The words seemed to cause him physical pain. We welcome humanity to the Galactic Council as full members. Elena nodded gracefully. Thank you, High Arbiter. Humanity looks forward to a long and productive partnership. As she turned to leave, Kethavaran spoke again. Ambassador, one question. She paused. The Wardens, will they return to hiding now? Elena considered the question. They will fade back into the shadows, yes. They prefer not to be seen. But they will always be watching, always ready. She met his eyes. Considerate motivation to treat everyone fairly from now on. Not just humans. Everyone. She walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the council sat in stunned silence, contemplating a future they had never imagined. Humanity had come to the stars as beggars. They would remain as equals. And somewhere in the dark between worlds, 5 ancient ships maintained their eternal vigil, waiting for the next time they would be needed. 50 years had passed since the Kepler incident. The new Galactic Council chamber stood on Earth, in a city that had risen from the ashes of the old wars. It was humanity's invitation to the galaxy, a gesture of openness after 12,000 years of secrecy. Representatives from over 30 species filled its halls, far more than the original 12 who had once ruled alone. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the central podium for the last time. She was old now, her hair white and her movements slow, but her eyes still held the same steady fire that had faced down the council half a century ago. Friends and colleagues, she began, her voice carried by speakers to every corner of the vast room. I stand before you today to announce my retirement from diplomatic service. A murmur of respect rippled through the chamber. Even former enemies spoke highly of Elena Vasquez. She had spent 50 years building bridges between species, mediating disputes, and slowly transforming the council from a body of elder tyrants into something closer to a true federation. When I first entered these halls, Elena continued, I was told that humanity would never belong here. I was told we were too young, too weak, too primitive to deserve a seat among the great powers of the galaxy. I was laughed at when I suggested otherwise. She paused, looking around at the assembled representatives. Many of them had not even been born when those words were spoken. The galaxy they knew was a different place. Today, 17 species that were once considered beneath notice have earned full membership in the Council. Laws that discriminated against younger civilizations have been replaced with standards based on merit, not age. Trade flows freely between regions that once viewed each other with suspicion. We are not perfect. We have far to go. But we are better than we were. She smiled. That is all anyone can ask, that we tried to be better than we were. The applause that followed was genuine and warm. Elena accepted it with grace, then stepped down from the podium for the final time. In the audience, a young woman watched with tears in her eyes. Lucia Vasquez had grown up hearing her grandmother's stories, stories of standing alone in the old council chamber, stories of ships that emerged from the darkness to save humanity, stories of enemies who became friends, given enough time and patience. Now she wore a uniform similar to the one Elena had worn all those years ago. She had been appointed as humanity's representative to the Exploration Committee, a new body dedicated to pushing beyond the boundaries of known space. After the ceremony, Lucia found her grandmother in a quiet garden outside the chamber. Elena sat on a bench, looking up at the stars that were just beginning to appear in the evening sky. You did well today, Lucia said, sitting beside her. Elena laughed softly. I read a speech. You are the one who will do the real work now. I hope I can live up to your example. You will surpass it. Elena reached over and took her granddaughter's hand. The galaxy you inherit is not the galaxy I knew. It is better, kinder, more open to possibility. What you do with it is up to you. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars multiply as darkness fell. Later that night, Lucia returned to her office to review documents for the next day's meetings. She was tired, but there was always more work to do. The Exploration Committee was preparing an ambitious mission to survey regions beyond the galactic rim, areas that had never been mapped by any council species. A message was waiting on her personal console. No sender identification, no origin trace, just a string of coordinates and a simple question. Are you ready to learn what we found out there? What we have been protecting you from? Lucia stared at the message for a long time. She knew who had sent it. Everyone in her family knew the truth about the Silent Wardens. They had kept the secret for 50 years, just as previous generations had kept it for millennia. The coordinates pointed to a location far beyond mapped space, far beyond anywhere humanity had ever traveled. She ran the numbers twice to be sure. For a long moment, she considered ignoring the message. The galaxy was at peace. The council was thriving. Perhaps some secrets were better left undiscovered. But even as she thought it, she knew she would not walk away. Curiosity was in her blood. It was in all of humanity's blood. It was why they had left Earth in the first place, all those thousands of years ago. Not because they had to, but because they needed to know what was out there. She encrypted the message with her highest clearance and began drafting a proposal for the Exploration Committee. The proposal would be controversial. It would require resources that many would argue could be better spent elsewhere. It would take years to approve, if it was approved at all. But Lucia was a Vasquez. Patience ran in her family. Far away in the void between galaxies, the Prometheus drifted in eternal vigil. Commander Yuki Tanaka stood on the observation deck, looking out at a star map that covered the entire wall. The map extended far beyond the Milky Way, showing regions that no council species had ever dreamed of. And scattered across that map were hundreds of red markers. Each marker represented a threat. Some were ancient civilizations that had collapsed into madness. Some were weapons left behind by wars fought before Earth's sun had formed. Some were things that had no name in any language, things that simply existed in the spaces between stars. hungry and patient. The Wardens had fought these threats in silence for 12,000 years. They had won every battle, though some victories had come at terrible cost. The humans of the Council had no idea how close they had come to extinction, again and again, while they worried about trade agreements and territorial disputes. Tanaka's first officer approached. "Commander, Earth has responded to the coordinates. They are sending a ship." Tanaka allowed herself a rare smile. She had waited so long for this moment, for humanity to build a civilization worth protecting, for them to prove they could be trusted with the truth, for them to be ready to take their place not just in the galaxy, but in the larger universe beyond. "Good," she said. "It is time they learned why we really built the Wardens." She looked at the red markers on the map. Each one was a story of horror barely averted. Each one was a reminder that the galaxy humanity knew was a small, safe corner of something much, much larger. "The Council thinks the Kepler incident was about them," Tanaka said softly. "They think we revealed ourselves to protect humanity from their greed. And that was part of it, yes. But there was another reason. Commander, the things out there are stirring. We have held them back for 12,000 years, but our strength is not infinite. We are only 5 ships, with crews that grow smaller every generation. Sooner or later, we will fail. And when we do, humanity will need to be ready to fight for themselves." She turned from the map and walked toward the bridge. There was work to do, messages to send, plans to make. The quiet years were ending. "We built the Wardens to protect humanity," Tanaka said, "but protection was never meant to last forever. Eventually, the children must become warriors themselves. The question is whether we have enough time to prepare them." The first officer followed her in silence. Behind them, the red markers glowed softly on the map. Hundreds of threats, hundreds of dangers, hundreds of reasons why the galaxy's peace was more fragile than anyone knew. But also, somewhere among those stars, there was hope. A single ship was being prepared on Earth. A crew was being selected. A journey was beginning that would change everything. The Wardens had protected humanity for 12,000 years. Now it was time to teach them how to protect themselves. And perhaps, in the end, how to protect everyone else as well. The story was not ending, it was only beginning.